Hey, it's Jason. So one of the more surprising pieces of tech that I've really been getting into lately are action cameras. Yes, they've been around for a hot minute, but the footage that you're able to get out of these little things have gotten exponentially better in a relatively short amount of time. I recently reviewed the Insta360 Go 3S. I'll pop up the card for that video in the corner in case you missed it, but it was one of the most unique and fun cameras I've used in a long time, and the video that you're able to get out of this little thing is impressive to say the least. So I was psyched when Insta360 reached back out asking if they could sponsor a video of me checking out their newest professional level camera, the Insta360 Ace Pro 2. And I thought a fun way to really put this camera to the test was to compare it against the GoPro HERO 13 Black, GoPro's newest action camera, to really see firsthand how the new kid on the block stands up to the competition. Now, full transparency, Insta360 is sponsoring this video, so it's not a review, it's just me checking out both cameras side by side and showing you what the footage looks like. You guys can make the ultimate determination on which one is better. I will provide some important observations and user experience information to help you get a better sense of how these cameras perform, all in an effort to help you figure out which one is the right fit for you. But before we jump into the comparison, a real quick plug for the JSL newsletter. I send subscribers out a full-res wallpaper every single week, as well as links to really good tech deals and fun articles written by yours truly. It's totally free. Link to subscribe is in the description below. Okay, before we get into the footage, let's quickly compare the physical design between the Ace Pro 2 and the GoPro HERO 13. Though they both have what seems to be a very classic action camera design, there are some important differences here. The Ace Pro 2 is a tad larger in every dimension compared to the GoPro, with the biggest difference being with the width of the camera body, mainly the camera housing being noticeably bigger. They both have LCDs in the front, with the GoPros being slightly larger and being able to act as a monitor to see if you're framed up correctly, where the Ace Pro 2 just provides data. And that brings me to the biggest physical difference between these two cameras. The Ace Pro 2 has a flip-up screen on the back to act as a way bigger and more clear monitor, while the GoPro screen on the back can't move at all. This does make it a lot easier to do things like vlogging, as it's more accurate and easier to get the right framing. They both come in with built-in mics underneath the camera housing, with the Ace Pro 2 coming pre-installed with the removable wind protector. The GoPro has the SD card reader and USB charging port inside the battery housing, while the Ace Pro 2 has a separate door on the side underneath the power button for those components. And the Ace Pro 2 on the bottom comes with its signature magnetic mounting holes that can quickly attach and detach to its quick release mount. The bottom of the GoPro HERO 13 actually comes with folding fingers built in and a 1/4-inch thread, but no built-in quick release compatibility. Now, the last thing that I want to touch on are the sensors for each of these cameras. The GoPro is equipped with a 1/1.9-inch sensor, while the Ace Pro 2 has a 1/1.3-inch sensor. The Ace Pro 2 also has a Pro Imaging 5nm AI chip, and the max resolution for the GoPro is 5.3K, while the Ace Pro 2 can shoot up to a max of 8K resolution. Now, for this particular comparison, I kept both of the cameras mostly on auto settings in order to give a better sense of how these cameras operate out of the box. Now, I did test out some of the specific modes each camera has, and I'll put in indicators on the comparison footage to let you know which modes are being used, but I didn't dial in any manual video settings or use either of the camera's log profiles or color grade in post. What you're seeing is the default settings and color profiles for each respective action camera. So first, let's take a look at some side-by-side comparison of some 4K footage coming out both the Ace Pro 2 and the GoPro HERO 13 in well-lit conditions. Both do well here as the footage comes out sharp and vibrant, and out the box, the color profiles are pretty similar, no major differences between the two. Now, some things I observed in well-lit scenarios, the footage coming out of the GoPro is a tad higher in exposure compared to the footage coming out of the Ace Pro 2. It's not to suggest that the footage on the HERO 13 is overexposed, it's just a slight bit higher, and the Ace Pro 2 does seem to retain more details in the shadows. Now, quick note, these clips were shot using the standard wide mode on the GoPro HERO 13 and the mega view for the Ace Pro 2, and you can see that there's less of that fisheye distortion for Insta360, even though it does have a wider focal length. Now, generally speaking, both cameras do a pretty good job with dynamic range, but they both have HDR modes that can be used when shooting in lighting conditions where the subject is heavily backlit. And you can see, generally speaking, that the Ace Pro 2 exposes for my face a bit more compared to the HERO 13, and it's a bit more pronounced here with the shot of these two in the backseat of the car. It's a very tough shot as there's a significant disparity of light exposure between what's inside and outside of the car, which is illustrative of why HDR modes exist. Now, low light conditions is probably the biggest pressure test to any action camera, mainly because their sensors are pretty small, and you can see how the Ace Pro 2 and the Hero 13 do in various low light scenarios. This is footage taken inside a restaurant where there was limited natural lighting, and you can see that the footage coming out of the Ace Pro 2 is noticeably brighter compared to the GoPro. It also retains the colors and the sharpness, all while having less visible noise, which is actually pretty impressive. And you can see in this extreme stress test where there's virtually zero light, the footage coming out of the Ace Pro 2 is still passable, while the footage coming out of the GoPro is arguably too dark to be considered usable. Now let's take a look at how these cameras do when you crank up the resolution to the max. The GoPro Hero 13 can shoot at a max of 5.3K, while the Ace Pro 2 can shoot in 8K, and this is what the footage looks like. Given the settings, it's not surprising to see that the footage for both comes out tack sharp, and the Ace Pro 2 with its higher resolution, you can see more sharpness in the grass and the tree leaves, and the difference starts to get more noticeable as you get closer to a subject. I will say for both, I don't see a major difference between the respective 4K shooting capability and their highest resolution in most cases, so I feel as though 4K is the sweet spot as it'll be easier on the battery life and the storage for each camera. Now, as both of these are action cameras, I wanted to compare how each did shooting 4K at 60 frames per second, slowed down for some smooth, slow action slow-mo. Both do a great job at maintaining sharp footage that looks buttery smooth when slowed down and can make for some great footage the more extreme action you're able to capture. Now, both the Ace Pro 2 and the GoPro Hero 13 have zoom modes where you can crop into the sensor to get a tighter focal length. The Ace Pro 2 has its 4K clarity zoom where it uses the 8K setting and then crops into it to provide a pretty clear 2x zoom at a 4K resolution. The Hero 13 Black has a 1.4x zoom that isn't as tight, and one thing to note, I wasn't able to figure out how to engage the zoom while recording. With the Ace Pro 2, you can just press this button here and you can zoom in and out while you're recording dynamically. From my testing of the GoPro, the zoom function is a bit buried in the settings and you have to toggle it on prior to hitting the record button, and you're stuck at that focal length once it's selected. If you want to go back, you actually have to stop recording and go back to the settings and change it back to the standard focal length. Also, both cameras have the ability to take some high resolution photos, with the GoPro Hero 13 shooting 27 megapixel stills while the Ace Pro 2 can shoot 50 megapixel photos. Understandably, the Ace Pro 2 is going to pump out a sharper image and the colors are more film-like compared to the GoPros, likely because Insta360 still partnered with Leica on the glass for the Ace Pro. All in all, it is kind of nice being able to take pictures with these little cameras. And the last thing that I wanted to test between these two cameras is the audio. The Ace Pro 2 actually has that removable wind guard that is specifically designed to minimize wind noise. Here's a quick test of some extreme wind to hear the difference. Now, both cameras have different audio modes built into the software. Here's a quick comparison of each of their modes. And for reference, now I have the stereo mode on the Ace Pro 2. This should capture all the ambient noise, so to kind of give you more of like a baseline reading of what the audio around me is like before you maybe kind of take a listen into the voice isolation mode. So this is a test of the voice enhancement mode on the Insta360 Ace Pro 2. I'm outside, there's pickleball courts here, there's a basketball court here, and there's some people playing, and there's some general traffic going by as well. So this is an audio test to check the wind reduction mode on both the Ace Pro 2 and the GoPro Hero 13. So both of them have wind reduction modes. There's a little bit of wind in the background, so really trying to see which one does a more effective job at kind of blocking out some of that wind and making sure my voice is clear without any sort of distortion. Okay, the last thing that I want to touch on from a performance standpoint is the battery life for both of these cameras. The Hero 13 Black has a 1900 mAh battery, while the Ace Pro 2 has a slightly smaller one coming in at 1800 milliamps. Out the box, the GoPro and the Ace Pro 2 have pretty similar performance, with both being able to comfortably provide all-day battery life if you start on a full charge. But an important thing to note, the Ace Pro 2 by default has a brighter display on the back that stays on way longer than the GoPros before it goes to sleep to save battery. If you turn on the Ace Pro's endurance mode, it can significantly extend the battery performance, and it also supports fast charging as you can juice up the camera to 80% in just 18 minutes, which is pretty insane. Some other notable features that are exclusive to the Ace Pro 2, you do have gesture controls where you can use hand gestures to activate and deactivate recording, which is super convenient if you're filming on your own. There's also a new dash cam mode that essentially turns the Ace Pro 2 into a dash cam for your car. It's pretty cool because you can set the storage settings to have it auto record over footage after a set amount of time, so you don't have to worry about running out of storage. And of course, you get access to the Insta360 app where you can use all of their in-house editing tools like their AI Warp to get some really fun shots. So at the end of the day, I think both action cameras do a pretty solid job at what their intended purposes are. Again, I'll leave it to you to determine which one you think is better. Let me know in the comments which ones you prefer. In my opinion, just to circle back to the question I posed at the beginning of the video, I think the new Insta360 Ace Pro 2 definitely competes with all of the new action cameras that are out there, and it's probably the easiest one to use from a user experience standpoint. Again, I'm not that experienced with action cams as I'm still relatively new to using them, and in that regard, the user interface on the Ace Pro 2 is much more welcoming than the competition. But which one works for you is really going to come down to preference, so let me know in the comments which one you prefer, the GoPro HERO 13 Black or the new Insta360 Ace Pro 2. Curious to get your thoughts, let me know what you guys are thinking in the comments down below. And in case you guys missed my review of the new Insta360 Go 3S or their new Flow Pro gimbal, check them out here, they're going to help you be as informed as possible.